and welcome back to another episode of Key Factors Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Jones, and we are powered by ReviewMyMortgage.com, which is the largest index for mortgage programs nationally. And we have a pretty awesome guest today. Someone that I have seen nonstop on social media is flooding my social media with some pretty damn good content. So I want to introduce my guest real quick. Ruben Hernandez Valdez.
Hello.
Is that how you go by?
Yeah, right. Yep. I know you get married and then you decide whose name is what. Yeah. No, yeah. Like you're right.
So a little bit about Ruben. Ruben is the co-marketing director of the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, in short, NAREP, and continues to support local businesses of all shapes and sizes. Ruben lives his motto, which I really like. Okay. Inspired people inspire people. That's pretty damn cool.
It's true. Yeah. And side note, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, interrupt all day.
I feel like in our profession, in mortgage and real estate, the industry in general, everyone gets so tunnel vision on sales and numbers, and then we forget what matters. You know what I mean? So that was important for me to put in my mission statement of the inspired thing, because it just resonates with me so perfectly. You know what I mean?
So Ruben, tell us a little bit about yourself. There's folks out there that don't know who you are. They have not come across your content in social media, and I want to give it directly from the horse's mouth, you being the horse this time.
I feel like it's important to talk about my backstory, because one of the things that I like to do is when I do these podcasts or just talk in general, I like to, speak on where I'm from specifically. I was born and raised on the South Side here in San Antonio. And then obviously high school, all that. Then I went to UT in Austin. My degree's in PR and marketing, which is why I'm all about, the marketing and branding. So you did graduate
from UT?
Yeah. From UT in Austin, yeah. And then from there, I always said I would never come back because I was young and I didn't want to come back to San Antonio, and here I am. But I touch on that, and I emphasize that solely to just a lot of times when you're from the South Side, or you are from an area that is always kind of like looked down on in a sense, you start to lose hope. You can't see anyone that looks like you, or there's no way out, if you will, quote unquote.
Right.
So that's where I'm from. That's where I was born and raised. UT, obviously, I've gone through a couple different jobs growing up. I did a lot of PR and marketing, obviously, but then I went into the hospitality industry, and I was an event planning manager for the Westin and the Hyatt, and did all that. And then I was like, okay, this isn't enough. So then I got my real estate license. We were just talking off camera. I got my real estate license. I want to say it was a week before the COVID shutdown.
Okay.
And it was one of those moments where it's like, okay, well, I either sink or I just figure out how to survive, or
I just keep this license until world gets back to normal.
And then try it then. Yeah. And really it's funny because people are like, I will say that's kind of what, unfortunately, at the very beginning of my career, not that it matters, but a lot of the industry, especially the seasoned agents, saw me as like, oh, that new guy that's just on social media. Like he's just that social media guy, right? Because that's all I had during that time. I couldn't even have showings. I couldn't do anything. So that's what I did, and that's what I focused on. And then it kind of just kept going, and then it worked. And I think, everyone always asks me like, oh, you do social media. Can you come teach a class here? Can you come teach a class here? And I don't teach social media because you can't really teach it. You know what I mean? Right. You just have to.
You can teach the traits. You can tell them the blueprint, and all that. But the content itself comes from you, brother.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. People are like, oh, well, can you help me film a video? I'm like, well, what's your idea? And you have to have a presence, unfortunately. And I hate to say that, but you have to know how to attract people, because we are our brands, your face. So that was the difficult part, I'd say. But in a nutshell, that is why I'm kind of known for social media, because when I started, that's all I had to grasp onto, to get clients. So, and then I realized very soon after that was my zhuzh. That was my, my go-to. So
your zhuzh. Yeah. I like that.
So now, so here we are now, and it's funny because we were talking off camera as well. A lot of people do think that I've been in the industry for longer than I have, which is I love. I don't want anyone to ever think, oh, he's still like a rookie, but in my mind, I still am. And so like when I speak on these and I do classes and things like that, I always try to tell people like, you have to compare yourself to the biggest people in the industry. Like when I first started, my broker is Steve Malouf, which is Scott Malouf's uncle.
Okay, very good. Yep.
So obviously I know a lot about Scott Malouf because he's my broker's nephew, right?
Absolutely.
And if you're in the real estate industry, everyone knows who Scott is, right?
Right.
So ultimately, and him and I mean, we've talked here and there. We're not like friends or anything.
And
but
Scott's a really great guy, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I've had him on the show. He and I have been friends for a while.
And he does a lot for the community. He just does a lot. And so for me, I was like, that's who I want. I want to be better than the best. And that's what I was looking at. I was looking at people like him, Robert Elder, I mentioned earlier, the people like AJ Regales, people that were sticking out to me. I was like, one day I'm going to be better than them, but I need to act like I am them.
Yeah.
Or else I'm never going to get there. So my broker used to get mad at me and tell me like, or my team lead too, he would be like, Ruben, you're not them. They've been in the industry for 8, 9, 10 years. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but says who? Like, I'm doing the same thing they're doing. Why can't I be as good as them? And so that's really been my fire as well. And not just because it's a competition, more so because if I don't hold myself to that standard, then I'm always going to be the little fish. And I'm never going to be able to make the waves in the community. And I'm not even talking about real estate numbers. I'm talking about just a presence and a platform to do more than just sell a house and
being bigger than yourself.
Exactly. So that's kind of a summary of who I am and kind of where I came from and why I do what I do. But yeah.
Well, you said two things that stand out to me already. The first one has to do with the idea of faking it till you make it.
Right.
And I see no issues with that whatsoever. Right. Myself, when I first got in the industry, I didn't have the money like others did. I did have the social media following, but it was for other purposes.
Yeah.
And I had to find a way to convey my message now that I sell mortgages to everybody possible. I started my business by going consumer direct because that's all I knew. Yeah. I didn't know realtors. I just did not know. The second thing that you mentioned is you still feel or think like a rookie.
Yeah.
Don't ever lose that.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is if you are always a student to the game, you're always going to be learning. Yeah, that is right.
That's true.
And I appreciate anybody that comes with that mentality.
Yeah. On that note, it's funny as I always when I tell people or like teach people or just have this conversation, I tell people all the time, like, it's important that you more importantly, it's important that you understand that perception is reality.
Right.
Going back to the fake it till you make it, because I spill my secrets all the time, but like there were times I don't really get to do it as much anymore because I truly am always busy. But at the time, I would just be booking showings at random houses and on my Instagram story, like showing number 4 of the day for my client moving from California. And there was no California client.
But it gives the perception that you're shaking and moving.
Right. And so they're like, oh, we got to use him because everyone's using him. And you know what I mean? So that's really was the catalyst of helping me get the clients, you know what I mean?
I speak a lot about social media and have for years because I used it a good extensive amount in my career and then stopped for a while because I had so much going on that I was coaching, teaching, mentoring, and was not focused on me, so to speak. But a lot of the things that folks these days don't get is if you're going to do social media, don't forget about boots on the ground.
Right.
And if you are just doing social media when the time comes that it's your turn and you don't know what the hell to say or know what to do, it actually goes backwards.
Yep.
Because then that one person tells more people than what you would imagine, and the secret's out of the bag.
Yep. It's so true. And on that note, on both sides, it's so funny. I was just talking in my office about this morning. I start to get a little, I don't get frustrated. It's probably not the right word, but I disappointed maybe when I see on either end, right? Either on the social media end or the boots on the ground, as you said, like in face to face in the work of it. Either way, I hate when I see people fall short, and it's like, I'll use an example. A lot of, just entrepreneurs, they think you can just hop on and do social media. Let's just say, right. And I'll see a lot of things these days. And that's not me, throwing shade if you or whatever you want to call it. It's just like, it sucks for some of us. Like this setup is pretty damn nice. I don't know if you can tell from where you're watching on the screen, but it's
Give
nice
us a wide view real quick. Hey.
It's nice in here. It's really nice. So, but if you're going to do it, you got to do it. And that doesn't mean you have to spend a lot, like thousands of dollars to do it. Figure out what your niche is, right? And so it frustrates me when I see people like, I'm like, oh, that was, for instance, a great Instagram reel. I see what you were going with, but you fell short completely.
Right.
Who am I to go and tell those people like, oh, you shouldn't have posted that, right? But another thing that I teach in my classes is that when I do teach a branding class is like, Nike just doesn't put out any ad.
Well, would you like me to help you with this one?
Oh, go for it.
I believe in a philosophy, old school, new school, never heard before school, but it's don't do things half-assed. Do it with your whole ass, okay?
Right. It's true.
Yes.
But then I feel bad because I'm like, well, what if they did it with their whole ass? Like, you know,
Right.
and that was their best.
I
And
see
that's
where you're
okay,
going with
you know.
that.
But it's like
in those scenarios, they need to know the truth.
Right, exactly. So there are times when I have to tell people, like there have been people I said, like, you know, you should probably post this or do this.
Right.
But I take a lot of pride, and that's another kind of weight that I put on myself is that when people do reach out to me and ask me the questions of how do you do it and what do you do and how do you get this done, I tell them everything because I know, and I feel very convicted in this. Like, I know what I do, you can do, and what you do, I can't do.
Yeah,
right. Like
that's very true.
It's very honest, and so. I know that you're not gonna be able to do it like I do, but I know for sure I can't do it like you do. And that's okay. And that's what gets us all our own, you know, niche and our own clients and all the things that follow with that. But so speaking on that, I'm very conscious about what I post. There's been plenty of times I've done videos with the big people, like, you know, the Aligned Mortgages of the world, and, you know, and then the small people. And there are times that sometimes that content that is filmed or created or edited for me is sent to me, and I just don't post it because it's not the standard. But people don't do that. They post anyway because they're like, I need something to post. Let me just post. And then,
correct.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be like the spearhead of it in a sense of like not to say like, oh my gosh, I'm just this amazing social media guy, which I love to do it though.
You have a passion for it.
Yeah, I do. And so when I'm on camera, I'm on, you know, and everyone at NAREP makes fun of me because the camera will turn on and I just like, and they're like, you didn't have a script. I'm like, well, no, because if I had a script, I would be like, you know, like a robot. So yeah. So and anyway, all that to say, it's just, I wish that the people in the industry, I think it's starting to round out the people that started when I did that aren't going to last, you know, through.
Sure. And you are very correct.
You know what I
We've
mean?
already started to see the domino effect of those that can't make it to the next paycheck and are having a tough time in closing a deal because we are in a tough market. But before I go further, I wanted to go back to what you were mentioning a moment ago. And it has a lot to do with being honest with yourself. I think a lot of folks out there do their best at being honest with themselves, but they're also looking, like you said, to fill content.
Right.
Why? Because the next message that I'm going to say is consistency.
Right.
You've got to be consistent with your content no matter what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the podcast room, things like that. This is going on my third year taking a crack at this podcasting stuff. And I'm nobody famous. We don't make any money from this. But it gives me an outlet to have intellectual conversations with other industry professionals that I don't normally like to have or don't normally get to have.
Right.
And it's a whole lot cheaper than therapy. So that being said, when I first started, it was not expensive. I had cheap mics from Amazon. I had a little recorder. We were actually using our cell phones to record. I'm not even joking with you.
And I've seen that footage, and it doesn't look, I mean, it's not obviously probably the most quality, but it looks good.
It's not as good as this stuff
this
right
is great,
here, right?
But yeah, I remember seeing it.
So just because you don't have the means, just because you don't have the know-how, number one, there's YouTube, and I guarantee you most people, if you stay consistent with it, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, they're not going to go back and look at that first video, that second video.
That video is not going to have any views because you were getting started.
Even if they did, how cool is it to see the progression?
Yep.
And for me, I actually shared my first podcast, and it was with Gilly Mendoza.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 2 days ago or something like that, and it popped up on my feed. And I went, wow, look how shitty that was.
Yeah.
But I shared it just to kind of show people
that's cool.
We're supposed to evolve.
Yeah.
We're supposed to change.
Speaking of, side note, Gilly, he actually graduated from my high school, but he's older than me.
Okay.
God, he's so good. He's so good at what he does. But
absolutely.
But on that note, consistency. Consistency is...
It's everything.
God,
it is everything.
And it's really not hard to be consistent. I think that people overthink it.
I would say that it's easy to be consistent with something you're passionate about.
Yeah, true.
And
true.
The level of passion that you have for doing what you do, you exude that.
Right.
So it is a tough thing. And I think that consistency with anyone and anything, if you don't have a true passion for it, is going to be tough.
On that note too, it's hard. I always tell people just start small. And I say consistency in the most literal way, in a sense of like, for instance, the first example I can think of is I do this Motivation Monday every Monday.
Okay.
I just post a quote that literally it just happens to be, I find one throughout the week, whether I'm watching a show or an interview and someone says just something that stuck with me, I'll put it in my notes. I have a whole list of them.
There you go.
And, but I have an alarm on my phone.
You've got a system in place because why? Our brain isn't for remembering.
Right,
it's for solving problems.
Exactly.
And the idea is, and I will tell you, I did the same thing when it was back in the day and it was time for me to post. I had 3 alarms that were set. Post something, post something, post something. And it didn't matter. I didn't go further than that. I just had the alarm that said post something. Right. So my brain was like, ding, okay, well,
now it's time. Yeah.
Post something. A lot of folks don't think about the systems that you have to have in place in order to accomplish that consistency thing.
That's true.
What you mentioned about starting small is huge. What ends up happening with folks that set out to do anything is they bite off more than they can chew, and then it becomes overwhelming.
It's true.
That overwhelming feeling feels like failure. You don't want to fail day 1, day 2. So start small.
Yep.
How do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One bite at a time.
Right. Exactly. It's so true. And I think too, is this a lot, just as humans, we just overcomplicate everything.
I would agree 100% with that too.
But because of the standards that we have all put in place for each other, you know what I mean?
They're all fake
exactly.
standards.
So like, I think that once I realized that, because I'll tell you, you touched on something about being true to yourself.
Yeah.
When I first started in this industry, oh my gosh, I thought, of course, as any new agent thinks, you have to go to every mixer.
Yep.
And you have to be friends with all the different cliques because there are those in this industry. You have to play cool with everyone. And on that, I had this thing on my head because of the industry I'd come from that I was too young, right? Because this is an older I started to be. I was in the wave of the new.
How old are you, Ruben?
I'm 32
ish.
32
30-ish.
Yeah. I always want to say I'm 31. But yeah, no, I'm 32. And so I'm not young. I know a lot of people because of my demeanor, because of the way I am, the way that I am on camera. They're like, oh my gosh, she's so funky and young, or whatever they want to say.
Sure.
Right?
That's a great thing.
Yeah, it's great. But
haters gonna hate.
My whole life, it's been like, oh, Ruben, like I didn't get jobs because I couldn't be a manager because all the other managers were 40 or 50 and I was 25 or whatever.
Sure.
So on that note though, I had all that in my head. And then if we're going to be honest, I came into an industry that is the most masculine, machismo, like whatever you want to call it industry. And I'm not that, you know what I mean?
You think so?
So, oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
So,
because I'm not,
yes.
I'm a straight male.
No, yeah.
I'm not all machismo, dude.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of ladies in this industry crushing
recently, yes. I feel like when I first started though, it was like really heavily male influence. But also too is because I was going to those mixers.
Yep.
Not many women go to those mixers.
I was going to say that there's a skewed judgment because of the surroundings that you were in. And that makes sense.
I put this idea in my head that I was like, oh, I can't be myself. And then I was like, okay, well, I have to be, when you first start, people tell you like, make sure you're politically correct. Don't go one side. Don't do this. Don't say anything that's going to piss anyone off because you don't want to lose clients. And then I got brainwashed at some point. And so then and this just came to my mind and we'll talk about it in a second, but for a good part, the 8 months, maybe a year, I was not Ruben. If you go back and look at my content, I was very like, what's up you guys? How are you? Like very trying to put on my manly voice, like I was trying to be someone I wasn't,
Yeah.
And because I was afraid that if I posted something about like, pride on my Instagram, people were and then I was like, wait a minute, I don't want you to be my client if you don't like who I am. You know what I mean? I don't want to make money off of you and I don't want to take your money.
That's right.
But as this just happened actually, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and not to get political, but during the Grammys, there was a lot said about the Grammys and how there were just a lot of things, right? Just a lot on every spectrum, right? And neither here nor there, not that I would agree or disagree. It was when I was starting to see social media, the bad part of social media, when people were, getting ballsy and saying things. And it's okay that everyone has their own view. I have my own view. You do.
Correct.
Everyone does, right? But then I started realizing, wow, like some of these people that I'm seeing saying things and doing things, like I rub elbows with.
Yeah.
I've done business with.
Mm-hmm.
I've helped these people make money and vice versa.
Right.
And it was an eye-opener for me because I realized like for so long, Ruben was being someone that he wasn't at the very beginning. And then he found himself. But even when I found myself in this industry, I realized like I was still, I'm this guy that talks about be authentically yourself and be unapologetic and be who you are and be the person that you are. It doesn't matter if you're a realtor with a 3-piece suit on or if you want to wear, slides everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do the job right. Okay. So I preach that and I preach standing for what you believe in. And to an extent, I do that.
Right.
But when I realized in that moment and I was seeing all the things on social media, I was like, I really don't stand for what I feel is right. Because other people are standing for what they feel are right.
You weren't being true to yourself.
I wasn't. I was to an extent. And then I was like kind of falling off.
Right.
And so it really sparked something in me for 2023 or the remainder of it is obviously I'm not going to go and blast people on social media and say like, oh, I believe this. And, but if people are just so comfortable, then I think it's fair for me to stick up for the people that I believe in, whether it be the gay community, whether it be real estate agents, whether it be, Latinos or whoever.
Right.
If I feel a passion to find a niche there to represent and empower a group of people.
Agree.
My goal, a part of my mission statement is to use real estate as a platform and a vessel to inspire people, whether it be with home buying or not.
Right.
And so like, again, I've only come halfway there and I realized like, okay, that was an eye opener for me because sometimes I realize like, and they're heavy hitter people. We don't have the same ideals and thoughts,
right.
but they didn't have a problem working with me and getting clients from me, So then it just opened my eyes,
And I have a feeling, this is a great discussion.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that a lot of folks believe that people are going to judge you based on certain things when we're here to do business, right? On one side of the token. And then on the other side is our personal life.
Yeah.
And most folks could give a shit how you are personally as long as you conduct yourself on the business front the right way.
Absolutely.
And I feel as though we may overstep the boundary of bringing personal into business or even caring what others think on that front. Now, I am the person that stays away from politics. I stay away from religion. I stay away from certain beliefs on social media. Why? Because I just took let's say I do give a belief, and every time I'll slip every once in a while.
Of course, because you
I
just
don't
can't
like
help
participation medals. I don't like victim mentality, all that stuff.
Same.
But I just shrunk my pool from this to that, even if it was just a tiny bit. I don't want to do that because that is not essentially what the overall goal is. Now, mind you, I do agree with you 100%. I don't want to do business with people that I don't know, like, and trust, or at least want to have some type of existing relationship or continued relationship, because this is a relationship business.
Well, and on that note, if you were selling snow cones,
sure,
you're selling a product. Yeah. If you're selling raspas on the side of the street, that is an item. That is a product.
Sure.
We are selling a service. And so what I want people to understand is, and I'm so with you on that, because it's like, the second you post something, or post or talk, or just make a recorded comment that can be seen again. The second you do that, not only is it speaking to your character and what you believe in and all the things, right? But it's also just kind of tarnishing your brand in a sense of like, you aren't as professional, because people are now starting to get into you, and you shouldn't. Unfortunately, I hate to say I don't say be fake, because that's not the word I'm looking for, but you have to always be on.
You have to be on.
That's just what it is. Like, I mean, my husband gets so mad at me. He's like, I'll come home and he's like, and he'll just start talking. I'm like, just stop talking to me. Like, I've been back-to-back showings for 6 hours now. I don't want to be on. I don't want to be RuebenRealtor. I just want to be Ruben, but I want to be silent Ruben for a little bit.
Ruben, I'm so glad that you said that.
It's so true.
And the reason why is, my wife knows at this point, but there are certain times when it's time for me to be done. Yeah. I'm always on. There's nothing wrong with that. But to a certain extent, everybody, and I've said this before, most believe me to be an extrovert.
Right.
I used to be an extrovert 100%. Like, give me more people, give me more things.
Let's party, everyone. I love everyone.
Exactly right. Yeah. As I progressed within my career, meeting people, hires, fires, training, everything that has gone on thus far within this career path and entrepreneurship, I can't say that I dislike people, but it's one of those things that I want to turn it off every once in a while. And when I say turn it off, I mean turn it off. Like, I'm not giving you my opinion about anything. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to tell you about my day. I'll come home and, so how was your day? And she doesn't really anymore, because preface of, I don't want to relive it sometimes. It's done. We made it through.
And is your wife, what is industry? What does she do?
She is she's a nurse by trade.
Okay.
She is a realtor. She owns an insurance company. She flips properties, not at the moment, obviously.
Okay.
And she is an incredible mother. She's kind of a badass.
On that note, though, what's great is that if you do use lingo with her, she can understand a couple things, right?
Yeah.
My
Before
husband
she did not.
Oh, okay.
So she's been in real estate for going on, I don't know, 4 years now,
Nice,
4 years. Prior to that, it was like she wanted to hear about it because she wanted to be around the cheese
man. It's interesting too. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, my husband would be like, well, what happened with so-and-so's house? Or like the house that, 222 Dr. Seuss Lane. And I'm like, it's just too much.
Right.
Like I can't even give you the Cliff Notes because the Cliff Notes would require me to explain even more. And I just don't have it in me today.
I don't need to go down 5 more rabbit holes
No, I
today.
believe that. But you're right. Like being on. And a lot of people mistake that for being fake or being, and it's like, well, call it what you may. It works. And it's it's not, you're not being fake because it's coming out of you.
You're not being fake at all.
You are who you are. But
let's call acting. Do actors fake it?
Right.
Fuck? No. you pay them good money to do it the right way.
Yep, that's true.
And it's the same concept. You're just damn good at being you.
Yeah. I think that you're totally right though. And you're the only other person I've ever met and spoken out loud to that they're like, oh my God, I agree. Because like
it's true.
All my close friends, a bunch of us were going to Nashville this weekend, and we were all going, and I was like, oh, and we have this, everyone says like, puro real estate. Because anytime we're out somewhere, I'll like walk off into a corner and they're like, oh, here we go, puro real estate. And they're like texting like, Ruben, you better get all your contracts done because in Nashville, there's no puro real estate. And I'm like, I know, but it's
you want to
really
know the good
hard.
news? If you continue down the path that you're going, you end up being the person that picks up the tab.
Oh, yeah.
You end up being the person that funds the trips and all the other things. And then all of a sudden, is it still puro real estate?
They're like, let's go sell another one. It was funny because last night we had a FaceTime call to discuss the trip. And they were like, I was like, guys, David, my husband, was on the call. And I went to my office at home. And I was like, guys, like, I can't be on this call. I have to take a call. So I was in the room and I came back. I was like, so did y'all figure it out or what are we doing? And they're like, oh, now. And then I got in the camera. I was like, I just put a $450,000 home under contract. Shut up. Like,
boom, exactly.
But then they were like, oh, but it's funny. But it is true.
There will come a point that you don't have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And I know the feeling because once you become a top producer and in that progression of becoming a top producer, there are a lot of trials and tribulations that you're going to go through. Yeah. There are going to be friends that you're going to end up leaving behind.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. It's just what was intended to happen regardless because we are supposed to change. I posted something today that I saw John Story put on his social and I went, man, that's exactly what I want to say right now. And the idea is you set out to change, to evolve, to grow into the best Ruben that you can possibly be. Yeah. And if you're not continuing to put yourself in the spotlight, get uncomfortable, as crazy as that sounds, and people say the same thing with me is, well, how can you be uncomfortable? Well, dude, every day I try to put myself
a little bit at least. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just it's having the understanding that I don't see anything as a failure, but more so a learning experience. Yeah. We have good days and we have learning days.
Yeah, and then you just do better the next day. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's true. I recently too, I've been realizing that in the industry, because there's a lot of things that I have in the works and planning, and I realized like, golly, in this industry, there's a lot of things that we take for granted, including our, like what we were talking about, being on our mental state, in a sense of like, God, I realized after everything with Twitch and everything that happened, I was talking to Nikki, Nikki over at Thrive Mortgage. Nikki New.
I've heard of her.
So her office is next to ours, and so I had gone over there. They have like a coffee bar, so I went over there.
You're
and
on
grabbed a
Sigma,
coffee.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
And anyway, I was like, hey, have you ever heard of like there being just like a meetup for realtors, like where we don't talk about real estate, like real estate industry, like just where we just sit there and like, if I don't know, someone's getting a divorce, they're just like, want to just talk to a normal, that
they
doesn't have someone at home.
AA.
Yeah, right. but for real estate agents, because a lot of us are always on, a lot of us are dealing, our clients are dealing, we're therapists, we're divorce lawyers, we are parenting people, like we're just trying to help everyone the way that we know how to.
Correct.
And then like you said earlier, we put ourselves to the back burner, like our work, our bodies,
everything.
Our mind, everything,
our vehicles. I just took my car finally to get an oil change that was overdue by damn near a year. So trust me.
Well, on that note, you need to get an electric vehicle.
I have one.
Don't drive one that needs an oil change.
I will never get rid of.
Let me tell you though.
Let's have this conversation.
Because regardless of what brand it is, whether it be Ford, Kia, Tesla, whatever it is.
So my wife has a Tesla.
Okay.
I had a Tesla at the same time as her. I got tired of not planning properly.
Oh yeah, I know.
When I gotta go, I gotta go.
No, it's true. But the thing is that my main point is that you struck a chord with me because I didn't realize how stressed I was when I had a car that took gas.
Yeah.
What do you call that? It's called like a
car.
They call it like, I want to say ice. It's like some weird in like words. But anyway, no, yeah. Like I feel like I never realized how stressed I was about getting my oil changed and putting gas and all that, because my friend the other day was like, oh, I got to get an oil change. And I was like, what does that feel like? Like I forgot, because I remember thinking like, oh my God, when's my next oil change? And a little sticker may have fallen off my car. And I'm like, oh, I don't know when to get it. And I don't know when I'm younger growing up, my car would overheat all the time and my dad would get pissed off because I wasn't taking care of it. And I was like, man, I didn't realize how heavy that was until I didn't have it anymore. And so now everyone asks me, they're like, will you ever get a regular car? I'm like, absolutely not.
So I was unlucky enough to fall into the auto industry before in another life.
Is that what you were doing before this? Because I was going to ask.
Briefly before this. So yeah, just before this, I was finance manager of Toyota Bernie. I also started their online, what is it called? eBay division.
Wow.
And then right before, and I'm going chronologically backwards, I sold cars for about 2 weeks. Sold quite a bit of cars in 2 weeks.
Just a little bit.
And that's what kind of fast tracked me to finance manager. But the idea behind learning blue book values, trade-in values, understanding how to buy that. And I have a pretty damn good close friend that owns Mark Motors. So it's like for the last, 11 years, even when he worked at Mercedes-Benz, it was the idea of you got an oil change, get a new car. You got a nail in the tire? Get a new car.
Yeah.
And that's just how we roll.
Wow. Wait, okay. So hold on. Now I'm curious. So what did you do before that?
Prior to that, I worked at Chase Bank. Okay. I was a licensed banker to where I had my 63-7 insurance license. I did annuities. I basically sold banking products and tried to leverage them over to our financial advisor to get any type of investment services. It was kind of my first little taste of commission, where we got about $32,000 base, and the rest was all selling checking accounts and investment products and business banking.
This is what you do. Like, you've always had a passion for it then.
Well, let's continue.
Oh, okay.
Going backwards, prior to that, I worked at the bank inside of Walmart. Straight up.
What
that was my first.
They've changed it a couple. Wood Forest. Okay,
that was my first. That's where I met my wife. That is, God, I owe a lot to that place because they taught me how to just like sell face to face. Yeah. And prior to that, I was going to school, played college football. I also ran poker games. I would go to New York and bring back stuff and sell it here. I mean, I had a credit repair company. I was an entrepreneur from day one.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 36, I believe now.
You've done a lot.
Born in 86? Yeah, 36. Yeah. I'll be 37 in June.
You're young. You've done a lot.
I'd like to think I'm young.
Yeah.
I do not have a degree.
You're not old till you're like 60, 70.
What was that thing in the prime? It didn't lemon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's so true though. It's so true.
He's not lying.
Nope. Wow, you have done a lot. That's really cool. It's cool to see that you've literally evolved. Yeah. Like kind of what you've done and to this. You know what I mean?
As much as I appreciate that, I feel like I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I don't have a college degree. So
overrated.
The idea, 100%.
Take it from someone that has one.
100%.
Overrated.
I've got some pretty big things coming up. We've got a launch of ReviewMyMortgage.com, something that we launched in 2020, right when you got in the business, and it did very, very well. And after a year of being on the market, we pulled it off and took all the funds and threw it into a brand new site, hired a development team out of India, Australia, and the Philippines, and we are now complete. It's freaking fantastic. It's like Zillow, but for lenders. To be able to have consumers go and self-diagnose truly on what they can qualify for, the advantages, comparing loans, and it's directly with the actual guidelines that we use as lenders.
Oh, wow.
We just know that you still need a lender to complete the deal, but hey, by all means, educate the hell out of yourself.
And so then, now I'm just curious. So like then people pay, I'm guessing other lenders pay to be a part of it, and then
other lenders at different companies pay to essentially have sponsorship. And we're not a lead generation company. It is an educational website that happens to have a portal, dashboard for the consumer, dashboard for the sponsor, and they can communicate with each other's back and forth. And obviously, there are inquiries that come through that system that end up getting closed by whoever sponsors that territory.
That is
It's
Brilliant.
something next level, and we've been working on it for 4 years now. So
good for y'all. Wow. I need to catch up.
Yeah.
On that note,
that's what the hot dog said to the bun, by the way.
Are you? Oh, really?
Yeah, it said catch up.
Are you into football?
I played college football.
No way. I cheered in college.
No shit.
Yeah,
We're at UT.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I played at McMurray. I played 1 full year there. I'm not going to say I was too small because I still played. It just, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I went up there and screwed off my time.
Oh,
to be honest.
I cheered for UT, and I can say I was the smallest person. Because side note, when you cheer for UT or you go to a big college,
sure.
all the cheerleaders that are males are all the people that didn't make the baseball team, the football team, the basketball team that are working
because they
out.
can throw people.
Yeah, the girls just go in like cute stuff in the gym and like, hey, you want to go to every football game for free?
Throw me.
Then there's those that trained their whole life to tumble and do all that. But anyway, side note, but the reason I asked is because I recently got into NFL, and I've been just because Cowboys. I'm from Texas. It was either that or the Houston Texans.
Oh my God, we got a Cowboys fan.
But I know.
Okay.
But you know what? I'm gonna make it a little bit better. I started watching, and I watched the NFL Honors because for anyone that's watching this and knows me, I am obsessed with Kelly Clarkson. But that's for a whole nother show. But she was the host, okay? And she was the host, and so I watched it, and Dak Prescott got Man of the Year.
Yeah.
And of course, I was all pissed off. I was like, why did he get it? He throws so many interceptions. I hate him. Like, swearing
so
I know
you know
about it,
shit.
right? Yeah, like swearing I know. But then I heard his story, and I was like, wow. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know his mom died. I didn't know his brother had committed suicide. I didn't know any of that. And in that moment, I was like, and to your point, I'm like, I need to do better. I need to do more. I want to evolve more. And I've come to the conclusion, I haven't like come to a name, so you heard it here first, but I think I'm going to start like a nonprofit. For lack of better words, I want it to be like Realtors Against Cancer, or like something, not that because it's corny, but like a clever name, because I don't think there's anything like that. And I don't have anyone very close in my life that's been affected by cancer. But I know that when I see people affected by cancer, I hear their stories, it touches me in a way that I never, felt.
Sure.
And I'm like, look, I know real estate agents make a lot of money. And in the real estate industry, there's a lot of money. Yeah. The ones that are serious, the industry has a lot of money. So I need them to put some money into some nonprofits that I feel like, our industry is not represented on anymore. You know what I mean?
I agree. I do agree.
But on that note, yeah, I feel like I want to expand and do more stuff. Because I'm, like you said, you're not done yet. And I don't feel like I'm even close to there, So
one thing that I learned and had to learn with making good money is how to deal with it.
Right.
And the idea, kind of like you had mentioned a moment ago, having these big dreams of helping others and doing things of that nature. I had aspirations like that as well, and still am able to do that. But the idea was I started doing that prior to me actually making it. And it was like, dang, now I've got to kind of refocus because these other things are pulling my attention and my skill time, so to speak, because I know what I'm good at. I know what I can excel at. These other things, I'm dabbling.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And not that the cause is not great.
No.
It's
of course. The
idea of putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
You can do, and I was having this conversation with one of our loan officers, Javier, shout out. The idea behind changing the world, which that's a great thing.
Right, it's a great idea.
We've got to have the funds to do so.
Oh, for sure.
You've got to have the means to do so, or you've got to have the voice and the people behind you to do so. Team, correct. Yeah. I think the one thing that we can focus on is what we do best right now, and then set up our systems in place. Our brand is doing what it does because we've done a good job of digging that in and making damn sure that everybody understands what our brand is. Most of the stuff you can set up on autopilot once your business is going. True. That way you can leverage and truly dedicate your time versus half-ass, whole-ass concept to the next best thing. Yeah. So that being said, what's going on in real estate? I want to talk briefly because I would like to actually get this sucker edited and on the market by tomorrow. Okay. Believe it or not.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
What's going on with the market? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot. So I think that there is a little bit of a I'd say a myth right now going on in regards to, like, first off, new builds. Yep. Because I think a lot of misinformation is out there in regards to, like, oh, well, they're desperate. They'll take any offer. Depending on, and again, you have to it's assess who your market is,
Sure.
because the Perry Homes of the world and the Ashton Woods and the Highland Homes,
that's their brand.
Correct.
They can do that.
Correct. the Lennars and the DR Hortons and the all the smaller homes, all the other smaller builders, the KBs, if you will, they're in the business of saving money.
Right.
They are not going to negotiate. So the thing is that the Perry and the Ashton Woods, they have a higher brand and a quality that is not going to be diminished by negotiating. But at the same time, they have a higher price point.
Correct. They have more room.
Correct. So that is first and foremost that I've been trying to educate a lot of my newer clients, because I'm getting a lot of clients that are saying, well, they told me that I can negotiate, and then they're doing closing costs. And it's like, yeah, but the interest rates are still starting high. And so you can buy down all you want, but then they only give you so much, obviously.
Right.
So my point is that what I'm seeing is that a lot of false information is getting pushed out by whatever entity it is to bring in those new clients, which I think we're having to work overtime and educate ourselves on what's happening, because I've had clients come to me and say, oh, they said my payment's going to be XYZ on a $400,000 home. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It's in the city limits. You're not a VA. You're not a vet that is in full disability. You pay taxes. Like, there's just no way,
this isn't adding up.
So that I'm seeing just a lot of misinformation there. But as far as just in the market in general in San Antonio, I'm seeing more often than not, I can speak for myself. Sellers are thinking, right, that we're in this buyer's market, and ultimately we are, in my opinion, we are weighing a little that way. Obviously, we're not where we were 2 years ago. But going back to the misinformation, I've had 5 listings that have sold in the first weekend that we put it on the market.
Sure.
And that's solely because of the perception and the expectation that is set at the beginning, and the right words are used. Right. Because again, sellers are misinformed, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to sell my house. I'm scared to sell my house because it's not good. We're not going to get offers. Well, you're not going to get offers if you're selling your house you're trying to sell your house like 2020 and 2023.
And we literally just spoke about this yesterday.
Oh, okay.
That concept of unrealistic sellers and their expectations. There are a lot of agents that are taking the listing because they want to get a deal under the belt.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they are taking the listing without the necessary conversations that they need to have with their sellers of realistic expectations.
Yep.
We are not in 2020, 2022, 2021. We're just not there.
Yeah.
So if your goal is to keep this up here and think somebody's going to buy it, let me show you the comps and what's actually selling right now.
Well, that, and what I'm also seeing is when I have buyers and I'm talking to another agent about their listing, it's mine. And I'm talking, and the reason I know they've been in the industry longer than me, because I can see their agent number, and it's way, smaller than mine. But I'll ask easy questions. Like, hey, for instance, I had this other buyer that, like, last week, and I called the agent. The house had been on the market for maybe like 14 days or something. And I was like, hey, of course, calling, what's the most important? The questions, just the basic questions to get an idea. And immediately was like, oh yeah, we just got didn't even answer the question. It was like, oh, well, we just got another offer. So are you submitting? And it was like, wrongo, dude. Like, that's not what I want to hear. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no. I was just curious if you have multiple offers, then good luck. They didn't have multiple. He didn't have an offer. No, because I got a call back in 4 hours later asking like, hey, so are you going to submit? The other offer backed out. I was like, of course it did. Right. So anyways, going back to but as far as the buyer and seller market, it's like it's not a buyer's market until there is so much inventory.
6 months inventory.
Yeah,
it's exactly right.
It's like,
yes. Until we have 6 months inventory, and we're not going to see that for a little while.
Exactly.
Because, and this is my opinion, but I do a shit ton of research.
Yeah.
We don't have enough people that are willing to sell based on desire.
Right.
I would like to buy a new home. I want to upgrade my home or lateral move. Nobody wants to go laterally and pay more.
Right.
That's just not a human trait that we carry.
Right.
And until that starts happening again, we're not going to see as many listings as we need. There are still tons of buyers sitting on the sideline, waiting for interest rates to drop.
For the right time.
Exactly. And it's just when is the right time?
Right. Never.
Now.
It's never perfect though.
It's
That's
never
my point.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is a good point. Like I think what I'm also seeing too is that with the pricing of homes, I've seen it a lot with my clients, because I've had recently in the last 2 months, I've had 2 clients come to me that were with a different agent and came to, like, fired them and came with me.
Sure.
And
on the
like,
buy side or list side?
On the list side.
Okay, gotcha.
And one of the commonalities is 2 different agents. The commonalities is the agent told me I could sell the house for X amount, which is true. The comps do say so. Correct. I get that. The biggest thing is I have to tell them, with all due respect, the home that you're living in, I'm going to use an example. What the home you're living in was built in the 80s. It has been refreshed on the inside. Absolutely. I wouldn't call it remodeled, but it's been refreshed. I want to ask you a question. When you were buying a home where let's say they said they could sell it at 270, right? Was a first time, because our first time home buyer is going to buy this house.
Right. It's in the price point of first. Yeah, correct.
And it's in as a first time home buyer, would you have, if you could afford a $275,000 home, you would choose this home over a brand new home just a little further out from where your home is located? You have to know who you're selling to. Or would you rather list at 250 and get way more feet in this door?
Right.
And have a multiple offer situation, which is what happened. And we sold for 260, which is not far off of 270.
Not at all.
And my point is that conversation is not happening. The conversation of comps is happening. The conversations of interest rates are happening. Those conversations are happening, but people are not being realistic with, okay, now let's get really deep and let's talk about what your home looks like, regardless of all the nice fixtures and all the things you've added.
I call it the conversation.
Correct. Yeah. It's not happening. And it's like, and I think people are taken back by it a little bit.
They're supposed to be.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be
they
checked.
Appreciate it.
Correct.
You know, and
they respect it.
Yeah. And then on the financing side, I just feel like there are a lot of new things and new options for the consumer. And
I think there's a lot of shiny objects.
Right. I was just going to say that. I mean,
I'm honest. I'm always honest. No.
I had a client that is one of my good friends. Her aunt is a realtor, and so she's using her. And of course, right, I wouldn't care. And then she's like, "Hey, your lender, can you call them?" Because I was going with Rocket Mortgage, and they were going, they were promising this and that. We're a week away from closing. They changed the interest rate. It was just a lot of balls dropped.
Correct.
To my point of, well, yeah, it's easy to click on a big box lender or these online lenders, because they do offer, if you are the perfect file, of course you're going to be treated like a king or queen.
That's exactly right.
But there is that personality, and that the connection is missing.
Well,
on that end.
And I'll add to that, because this is my area of expertise. You can jump online and find any low rate.
Right.
There are caveats within that, the fine print, so to speak, that's going to tell you exactly what it is based on that day in this scenario and the perfect stars aligning.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get what it actually is, but you're also, unfortunately, at the mercy of this paper pusher.
Yeah.
No disrespect, but
it's so true.
Lenders that work for your Quickens, lenders that work for your online lender only are paper pushers. If you ask them, here is your scenario, can you give me your opinion? They're not going to be able to put that into a logical scenario to where you can see the benefits and disadvantages.
They won't be able to break it down at all.
None of that stuff. This market is intended for an expert.
Yeah.
And yes, like myself, I can go, when we bought our house, I literally subscribed to a credit union in Chicago because they had 3% rates. This was 4 years ago.
Oh, nice.
And when rates were high.
Yeah.
Why? My shit's in order.
Yeah.
Push a button. Here's the documents.
Yeah.
See it closing.
Yeah.
Whereas most, and I will say most buyers, they can't do that.
Oh no.
They need someone like myself on the side of the lending to put their deal together, to show them that there is opportunity, that there are options available for you, and that big box lender that denied you because you had something out of place.
Yeah, because they just check boxes. And if one box is not checked, on to the next.
I'm going to even take it a step further. You have a lot of credit unions right now that have laid off a lot of their manpower, loan officers. Why? Because they were the most expensive expense.
Oh, yeah.
Now they've got their processors doing the job of a loan officer, and they use a lot of automation. There's nothing wrong with that if you deal with a paper.
Yeah.
You've got tools that allow you to pull the bank information in, pull their work information in, check the pulse, check the credit score. You're off the race.
Yeah.
Most people can't do that.
Right.
And you hit a pretty solid point there, and it's just the reality of things. People think that they're all a paper. They're not.
Yep, it's so true. And then the last thing I do want to touch on though is One of the biggest things for me in the industry with working with specifically buyers, right? The buyers in this industry are, well, it's not their fault, but they're just being, it's like we're all being, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sábelo todos?
Yeah, like we're, oh God, dang it. What's, when they build an area up and push the other people out, what am I trying?
Assembly line.
No. Like when they build an old area and they kick all the old people that live there. And
gentrification.
Gentrification. God, I couldn't think of it.
We're leaving all that in.
Yeah. It's like we're all being gentrified at this point.
Yes.
And what I'm seeing is that and I'm passionate about this, is there's no affordable living anywhere these days. So I have the struggle of a client coming to me and saying, hey, I got pre-approved for $175,000.
Right. It's tough.
What am I supposed to say? Go get a new job? Go make more money?
No,
you know what I mean?
Here's my advice to you.
Thousands of dollars of debt.
As a new to the business realtor, and you're not new, but always the mindset of that. I think it's a tough time for people to come to terms with reality.
Yeah, true.
We've had a long time where people were getting 2-3% interest rates, which yielded much more home than what you actually should be buying historically.
Right.
So it put all this false expectations and false reality into people's minds.
True.
You notice on social media, the reels that are just videos of beautiful homes with badass songs, they get the most views.
Of course.
Because it's what we dream to get at. Mm-hmm. We forgot as consumers that there's levels to this shit. Like Mick Mill said, there are levels. Yeah. And you've got to start with your starter home. I will tell you personally, I made, $60,000 the first year that I bought a home. I was 22, babe. I don't know, something like that. 132,000. We used USDA 100% financing. Didn't put a penny down. Closing costs were paid by the sellers. 5.5% interest rate. We lived in the home for 3 years, and then we converted that home into our first investment.
Oh, nice.
And in my mind, I wasn't thinking I need to have all this nice shit. Right? I financially savvy, worked in a bank, understood seeing all the different scenarios come across. I just need to become a homeowner. Yeah. So I can start tucking some equity away. Well, fast forward, let's go 6 years after owning that home. We were already 3 homes in, and we were doing the buy, live in it, move to the next. Buy, live in it, move to the next. We're now at a $1.7 million home, and all of those proceeds came untaxed from all the others that we had. But the idea is, I think it was in 2019, 18 when we sold that original one. We ended up netting like 80 grand, awesome. And we never put a penny into it other than decor and maintenance. And correct. And I think we need to go back to that concept to bring these people down to reality to go, if you're approved for 175, find something for 175 and live in it for 1 year.
That's so true. You know, I did think of it that way, but not in the depths that you're speaking on. And that's
I'm
important.
Just giving you real life.
And that's important because for me, it's not that it's the right truth, but it's a very honest truth that is realistically what's going on right now.
And it's very possible.
And it's so possible. Yes, that's what it's just so hard. It's so hard to get that through people's minds. You're right, because they have this idea of their
social media mindset.
Yeah. It's so
coin that right there.
Yeah. And I'm like, what you just said is it kind of threw me for a loop, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. On that note, it's difficult to the conversations that I have had. I'm like, okay, well, this is what you'll you'll be approved for, and we'll go look at houses, and you can find they're not sheds. You know, they're not.
No.
You know?
I mean, you are going to have to compromise.
Right.
You are going to have to give
You're not
up
live
some
in Stone
things.
Oak. Yeah.
Correct. Now, mind you, the folks that are used to living in Stone Oak, paying $2,200 for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Right.
Whose bank are you helping?
Right. Not yours.
Not yours.
At all.
It's time to put yourself in the real reality that you should be in had you decided to become a homeowner. Yep. Because guess what? 3 years from the day that you decide to, you know what? I'm going to go for the 175 and figure it out.
That ain't going to be 175.
It's not going to be 175. And here's another concept. You're qualified for 175. Have you considered looking at duplexes?
Yeah.
What? Why would I live with somebody? Well, the idea is you now can buy a $300,000 home because the rent can pay for the other, and lenders can actually use that.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not talking to the right lenders.
Exactly. and on that note too, I think that because It's hard to, when I get the clients that are the 24, 25, 26, you know, like the younger age, younger than me at least.
Everybody's younger than us.
With that, you know, that Gen, what is it? Is it Gen Z?
Z. Gen Zers.
The Gen Zers, unfortunately, I feel like there's just no getting into them. There's no, because they are like I mean, that they are, that's my little brother.
Because of this right here.
And
this
you know, it's funny because we grew up with, well, I mean, MySpace, Facebook, those things.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, good God, like the things that come out in all facets. I'm talking outside of real estate. I'm talking inside of real estate. From that generation, it's kind of like, huh? Like, are you on planet Earth?
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say?
No, I agree with you.
You're totally right. And now it's just going to change the conversation for me in those instances. But I now that I'm, you know, actively thinking about it, it's like, God, that group of people, those are the hardest ones. Which is why everyone targets them, right? Which is why there's ads for them, which is why marketing and advertising and everything, money is spent towards, I get it.
Right.
But in our industry, it's the difficult part. Let's look at another
concept. And I'm loving this conversation because I believe there's a lot to be learned here.
Yeah.
And it's also a reminder for me.
Yeah.
Is the idea of, if you are building your wealth based on buying a lower priced home, as you progress, you can continue to invest in homes of that price range. And is it hard to find something in that?
Probably.
It always is going to be.
Yeah.
It is always going to be. It may need a little TLC, something like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you'll be able to tell the story. You'll be able to set another perception for others out there that are thinking the same thing. Yeah. It's tough. We are in a world where everything is at our fingertips and everybody knows more than we do.
Yeah.
It sucks, but at the same time, it's also a good test for us to brush up.
Well, rise up. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's so true. I'm curious. How many children did you say you have?
Two and done. 2 and done. We're
actually the saying goes 1 and done, but I'm
2
kidding.
and done. Boy, we got our girl and we got our boy, and then we were done. Yes.
How old are they?
6 and 9.
Oh wow,
6 and 9.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the 6-year-old's getting up to the teens soon.
Oh my God, it's just, I don't know. It's cool seeing how alike they are to myself and my wife.
Oh, really?
It's a trip. Oh my God, it's a trip.
And the reason I asked about them is just because I'm like, how, and this is just, I'm curious, being financially savvy and being in the industry that you're in your expertise, like, do you, at their age, like the 6-year-old, do you ever are you throwing things already?
I don't sugarcoat shit for my kids.
Okay, good. Because I feel like that's how it would be.
And I think it is, I think it's working.
Yeah.
Yesterday I got a text from my wife that my son is in the 98th percentile of the smart kids or just all the kids in his age. And I was like, just to verify, that means he's smarter than 98%, right? Let me make sure I'm smart. But I was raised that way. Great parents.
Yeah.
We didn't have always the most smooth road. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think it helped me be me.
Where are you from?
I'm from here.
What part?
San Antonio. I grew up.
Where did you go to high school and
high
middle
school? O'Connor.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're like Helotes area.
Right inside of Helotes. Nice. I hung out with the Helotes folks all day long.
Well, because back then Helotes wasn't what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
I played high school football, track. I was, I don't know, just the guy that was friends with everybody.
And you said, okay, so then now I'm just curious because I just want to know now. And then you graduated high school, and then where did you go?
And then I went to play at McMurray in Abilene.
Okay.
Played there for a year, came back, went to the community college for a year and a half, and then I went to UTSA, got associated, not in a fraternity, but associated with a fraternity, and was doing club promoting with John Vale, shout out, was working at a bank, was dealing cards and running my own poker games, was doing credit repair, was it just never stopped.
It's funny because people always say, like, you're such a hustler. I'm like, some people are just built that way, and clearly you're one of those people. You know what I mean?
More, man. I wanted more.
I just feel like, and
I knew it was possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited about, because I feel like I'm just finally getting, I'm revving up to get to, to build my empire, if you want to call it, or whatever word you want to use. As you spoke with investments, and that's in this next 6 months, that's what we're doing with our first house that we bought. Right. We're going to turn it into our investment. We're not going to sell it, you know, but I'm excited. on this, in the sense of like, I can't wait for what's next. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many different things. I think another thing you touched on too is the balance, right? And being able to focus on what you're good at, right? I think is what we were talking about. And in this case, right, real estate. It's my career. It's how I pay the bills. It's my passion. It's what pays the bills and makes me happy, right?
Right.
But I think people just need to, I think you'll get, how do I explain this? Like for me, I'm able to do multiple things, obviously not equally, right? Because one's going to take it over. But as long as you spent the time, right? For me, it was, let's call it 3 years that I literally slept, eat, breathe, Google alerted, real estate, the woo-ha. Like I'm like, right? So I dug so deep and tried to understand all the ways I could to now, like you said, it kind of starts to run itself in the sense of the systems, if you will, right?
Yeah, you start to find what's broken. How can I automate, delegate?
Yeah. And then kind of repeat, obviously, to a certain extent. Yep. And so what I'm excited for is the fact that I have a huge interest in PR and marketing for other realms, and I'm a huge music fan. So I like that I'm finally, for once in my life, because I always try to do it and it didn't work out, for once in my life, able to have my career and really manage it and turn it off finally. Sure. You know, on a weekend or whenever I say that I'm not going to have an appointment, I don't have my phone ringing or I don't answer it when the time is right. But then I'm able to, for instance, the other, you know, in November, I went to the Latin Grammys with one of my good friends who was nominated.
Very cool.
I got to experience that, but it was so cool to be able to
do that,
to do it, but
to have the means.
And then financial part, the means, but really just like feel like the past 3 years, I literally didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I didn't go on trips. I wasn't one of the dumb agents that made all my first commission checks and then went and bought a new car and went on vacation or whatever. So now, I mean, I'm realizing that as I'm speaking to you is that I hope that whoever's watching this is like, okay, yeah, like it's just going to take the consistency of a couple years, 3 years, 4 years to then ride the wave until your next level, basically.
And I've talked about this. I actually have a business personal coach, and she and I have spoken about this quite often, and it is the concept of balance. For me and a lot of others, balance is bullshit.
Yeah.
Why? Because you only have 24 hours in a day. There are some things that are going to go by the wayside, but I call those things low priority things. Yeah. So instead of calling I need to be balanced. You need to have good work, home life balance. And it's like,
that
wait a minute.
Exist anywhere.
It doesn't if you really want to go for what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Because something's got to give. I can't be there sometimes at night when my kids go to bed. What do I do instead? I make sure that they understand that they know what I'm doing.
But you're there most times. You can be there most.
And there's even sometimes when I'm not there. True. The thing that I'm speaking to is I make sure that they understand what I'm doing so that they know that I'm not all effing off.
Right.
Does that make
That's
sense?
working.
I'm working. Why am I working? Do you like where you live? Do you like the schools that you go to? Do you like us being able to say yes when you want to do something?
Yeah.
And know that comes from a place of somewhat of privilege.
Yeah.
I still will raise them in the sense that they're going to work for everything that they possibly, just like I did.
Yeah, exactly.
But this concept of balance, and you've got to have a good work-life balance. Says who? How do you get to your true end goal if you're trying to balance everything? If it requires you to work 8 hours all day nonstop on that passion that you have and 2 hours with the one you love, make sure that they understand why you are passionate about something and what it can possibly do for all of you guys. And I'm hoping that whatever it is that you're passionate about does help everybody within that.
You said two things that my people hate when I say it. Like I push the envelope a lot, and I'm like, what rule book? There is no rule book to anything we do. Nope. Like there is no rule book. You could argue to your death in the there's no rule book, right?
Right.
So I always tell people they're like, oh, well, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, says who? Or anything, right? So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that when you're balanced, I imagine like a circle of priorities, right? And then when everything's balanced, it's just going to stay here.
Right.
Like obviously when things are balanced, it's so stagnant. So yeah, I hate that too. I'm like, there are times when my husband gets annoyed that I'm in the office till 11 at night trying to figure out how to not let the deal fall through or whatever, right?
Whatever the case may be, yes.
But you're right. I think that so many people are like, oh yeah, you have to be home with your wife and you have to be home with, everything that matters in your life. But sometimes not that they don't matter, but sometimes you got to put other things in front of others because it matters at the end of the day what's paying the bills and or maybe not what's paying the bills, what's making our family happy or what's
you
making
happy.
me feel happy.
That's right.
But yeah,
they're gonna get a better you if you're
exactly.
happy.
And the no rule book thing is just God. I live by that
I
so
like it.
much because and especially in our industry, there's the cookie cutter way, and then there's the off the broken beaten path way. Yeah. And both those ways are getting us to the end goal. You know what I mean? So it's like, do what you got to do, and make it work. So yeah.
Well, Ruben, we've talked a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
And some of it wasn't even planned at all. And I love that. Yeah. I love that we can just fly off the cuff and have great conversation. And we're probably going to have you back because there's plenty more to talk about. But before we wrap this up, you being new to the business, we'll call it.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a realtor out there just getting into this business or having been in this business maybe for 6 months that is having tough times?
Yeah.
I got honest.
Yeah. Two things. Know who you are, because that matters. Like, I hate to sound like so deep, but you have to know who you are before you can be for someone else, whether that be your client or whatever, right? Because one thing that I teach, especially with branding, it's important. There's a reason why mission statements are out there. It's not just a sentence you put in your marketing project, right? Or on your website.
Right.
You eat, live, breathe, sleep by that.
Right.
And so what a lot of people do is they hit the ground running in their newer years, and their sole focus is, I got to get a client, and go live on Facebook and go to do an open house. But then you're just a being.
Right.
And we are still, yes, we sell houses, but our brand is ourself, is our face, and we have to do what we have to do to make sure we're likable, because the only way people are going to get into the house to see it is if they go with us.
Yeah. And they only do business with people they know, like, and trust.
And so, exactly. And so it's like, it's an idea that sounds so simplistic, but it's not. There's so many layers. So just knowing who you are and then executing who you are. And I mean that in all sense of the word of execute, meaning like, if who you are, let's call it, if who you are is, you want to do business with, I don't know, you want luxury homes, let's just call it. I know that's like the goal of every agent when they first start. It's like, it doesn't work that way, but let's just use it as an example,
sure.
right? Then
as Robert Elder would say,
right,
everybody's a luxury agent.
I know.
Just add it to your name.
I love when he says stuff like that. But,
I love it
because he can. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. So but in that sense, it's like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, then execute it. Then make sure you're always dressed to the nines. Make sure you're rubbing elbows with the people you need to rub elbows with, and commit to it. Right? It's not easy. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is do the right thing, in the sense of the education that comes with it. Don't just breeze by your real estate classes, because I made that mistake with my first class. I was like, oh, screw this, I'm going to get through it quick. And at the end of the class, I was like, oh shit, I don't remember anything I just read. Now, granted, you got to go to know. You'll learn when you're in it, right? But you really, really, really have to just execute it in all facets. And I mean, showing up, executing your timeline and your time management, in a sense of, like, I'm not saying their time blocking does work for some people and it doesn't work for others, but I'm talking about your timeline from when you start, where do you want to be by the end of the month? Right. That's it. Start small, like we talked about.
Honor your commitment.
Yeah. But other than that, I wish I could say something that's so like something prolific of, like, read the 10 pages of this book and do this and do that. But really, it's just like, you just got to do. You just have to do, because, and by do, I mean, like, it's not, I know Selling Sunset and Buying Beverly Hills and all the shows make everything look so glamorous, and we all would love to be on Netflix, right? But it's not glamorous.
I will tell you, they had to bust their ass in order to even get looks for something like that.
Sure.
You got to have the numbers behind it to back it up. And I think that a lot of folks tend to put that cart in front of the horse without doing that groundwork. The same concept.
And the research before.
Yes.
Because sometimes they join this industry for the money.
Yeah.
And that's great. I'll tell you, like, once you learn how to manage it and get your LLC and get your, everything that is included in the back end of that, once you figure that part out, which I learned thank God for my broker, I learned that very early on. Once you learn that, it's great. Yep. But sometimes you have to do the research before to understand, is real estate really for me?
Right.
Because the money, yes, can be for anyone, but the industry is not for everyone.
I agree.
And I think if you can be realistic with yourself and say, like, okay, this isn't for me. Whether you shadow someone, whether you read articles, whether you read a book about real estate for dummies, whatever it is, once you realize if it's for you, if it's not for you, then you make that decision. But don't just jump in. That never works. You know, like I want to be an actor. I can't just start acting, obviously. You know what I mean? You have to know if you're good at it, you know? So I think really it's just those things of if you're going to do it, you got to do it. You can't half-ass it. You got to do it with your whole ass.
The whole ass, baby.
And yeah, it's not just social media and glitz and glam. That's for sure.
Ruben, that's awesome. So those of you listening, tuning in, actually watching this, we've gathered plenty of valuable information from this episode. One of the things that stuck out to me the most is be yourself, be your genuine self, and be true to yourself when you're going through these things. The second thing that stood out to me, which is so relevant to today's market, is you can't just be a half-ass agent. If you're jumping into this business for the money, no problem. Expect to be the expert. And what I mean by that is you've got to engulf yourself. You have to 100% go at this with your whole self. That whole self that we were talking about, that is the genuine self, that's what I'm talking about. Ruben, I really appreciate this. This has been a long time in the making, and I'm glad we finally had it. I'm
happy I came.
I think we should probably have you back again so we can carry some of these conversations.
Let's do it, yeah. Have you ever, side note, we're about to end, but have you ever thought about doing like a panel of people?
I can do a shit ton of people now.
Okay, good. That's always fun to banter and, bounce off.
Yes. No, we want like some, what is that? Fresh and Fit podcast?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Without the chicken heads. That's awesome. Well, guys, definitely, if you have not yet already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I think it's going to be over there. And then make sure to hit the like button, which is probably over there. And if it's not, just keep listening. We appreciate you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will catch you on the next one.